Welcome, everybody. We are talking today to four exemplary people in the tabletop industry. My name is Sen-Foong Lim. I'm a designer from London, Ontario, Canada, and I'm your host today and moderator of this panel. On this panel, we have John Zinser, we have Matt Fantastic, Eric Slauson, and Tanya Thompson. And I'm going to let them do their own intros because I can't do these wonderful people justice. Why don't we start with John? Let's go.
Hi, I am John Zinser. I am the CEO and owner and now the director of creative at Alderac Entertainment Group. So I am the person that handles the majority of the pitches that come to our company.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Anytime. Matt Fantastic, why are you fantastic?
Well, I mean, because Matt Mediocre was like more accurate, but not as, you gotta sell. You gotta sell. That's
was
one
it
of the
taken?
First lesson, kids, always sell. So I run Forever Stoked. I'm the creative director and owner there. That is a full service design agency. I also am an adjunct professor of game design at a number of different universities. So I get a lot of pitches from students. I also do some work as an agent, and I also publish stuff on a small scale. So I'm nowhere near as cool as everyone else with the publishing, but I do like a little bit of it. I also own a game shop and library club. So I have to pitch games to customers all the time as well.
I'll always be pitching.
Pretty much.
You are a kind of a pitch machine, fantastic pitch machine. Eric Slauson, tell us all about yourself.
Well, I definitely don't wear as many hats as Matt does. I just design games. I just make games. I do have to, pitch them and especially demos at conventions and stuff. That's probably the closest I get to Matt when he sells the games at his shop. But I design tattoo stories, MonsDRAWsity, mostly work on party games and social games, which are always very entertaining to pitch. We'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, just, make games and try to sell them to these three other people.
Awesome. And Tanya, last but not least, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Tanya Thompson. I head inventor relations for Hasbro Gaming. I basically do what John does as well, and hopefully I get to see people like Matt and Eric when they pitch me ideas. I'm like the gateway, so it's obviously a big company. So I'm the gateway. I'm the person inside that works with all of our external partners, ones that we have long-standing relationships with, as well as new ones that we've never met before. So that's my role. And people pitch me ideas. I'm like the gateway or the first filter, because I work closely with the internal teams and know what they're looking for. And then I turn around, become you, and pitch inward to those teams, and try and get our inventor ideas placed in the company.
Very cool. And so a lot of times I'm hearing from you, and I know John as well, that you kind of have to not just like the idea that the designer presents you have to then sell it to the rest of your team, because, the rest of Hasbro or the rest of AEG may not necessarily be on board with what you think is cool, because they might have different directions. They might have, got a new directive from higher up. I mean, not that anybody's really that much higher up than John, but you know what I mean? That there's other things that are going on that, maybe people are saying, okay, well, let's not look at that one right now. Can somebody actually, I'd like to hear from John first. What's it like when somebody sits down at the table to pitch you? Can you kind of go through the process and what's going through your head? What are you looking for? What are you listening for?
So I think one of the key things that we look for when we're getting pitched is what we think the hook is going to be that we are then going to turn around and use to sell that product in the far future after we have developed it. So if a designer, we get a lot of pitches that are, a laundry list of things that a game is, but the designer has not sort of focused on what makes their game unique or makes that combination of mechanics in their game unique, which makes it really tough for us or me to look at that game and say, that sounds like I don't know why the game Agricola has popped into my head, but that sounds like
Because we were talking about Zev.
and because we were
True.
talking about Zev, exactly right. And when I get pitched a game via video or via sell sheet or however it is that we get the first look at a game, we have to understand what the designer feels is the magical thing inside of their game, because that is ultimately what we will try to build and sell in the final product that we're doing. So I think that's the biggest thing that we're looking for.
Matt, how do you?
Could I build on that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Just as a creative, primarily, I'm going to say, like, get this out of the way. Like, your game can be awesome and nobody cares, right? Like, at the end of the day, there are tons of great designers. There are tons of talented, amazing designs, but ultimately you're making a product that people want to be able to sell. And if you can't come in and explain to the people you're pitching to, here's how you're going to sell this, here's why this is going to make a bunch of money, why, because ultimately, we're all in it because we love games. We're all passionate about the creative, but at the end of the day, like, not everyone is able to sell the great game. I mean, you look at the mix between certain companies, and some companies have been incredibly successful with certain titles that would have totally tanked with a different company, and it's super important to not just have a great game, but have a great idea about how this is going to make money, how this is going to be a product for that company.
Right. So I wanted to ask you, how do you sell the hook to people like John and Tanya?
Well, so, I mean, it's that, right? Knowing what people want, knowing what their line currently is, how you might fit into that line, right? So, I jokingly pitched Tanya, like, at the end of a meeting, some really ridiculous stuff that I know is absolutely not right for Hasbro. But hey, man, I got this stupid game about wieners. Like, what do you think, right? Being able to articulate how this is going to fit in is huge, right? Like, AEG, for example, we were just talking about this. They're looking to publish tentpoles, and that's it, right? They don't want small stuff. They want a thing that you can build a line around, build a quarter of sales around, right? Tanya wants stuff with more toyetic components, stuff that's pushing the boundaries of manufacturing. You're going to have other publishers that are looking for, all kinds of different things, and you need to talk about how you're going to add breadth to the line or depth to the line, right? Is kind of the two directions you might go in. They don't want the same thing. I am constantly getting turned down for, that sounds really, really awesome, but it sounds so awesome that we actually have something that's like maybe not far enough away from that we want to do your awesome thing, right? Just got turned down on this game that's like a physical activity thing, and they were like, that's really awesome, but we're doing 3 games this year, and like one of them is already a physical activity thing. So even though yours is completely different, like, sorry, man. So yeah,
there's only so many bandwidth categories that you can have.
Yeah, so right. I mean, it's having that really high level, what is going to make this sell, right? Again, I hate this. Like, I'm anti-capitalist, and I have to, like, put on this awful hat to think about it that way. But really, I'm going to tell you how you can sell it, because then again, as already mentioned, you have to turn around and sell it to the rest of your team. And then the rest of your team has to turn around and sell it to retailers, who are then going to have to turn around and sell it to customers, right? So it's just a whole chain of what is the thing that makes this special, right? And the way to do that is really think about, when you talk about the game, what is the 2 sentences you lead with?
Right, exactly. Eric, going to you, like, let's say MonsDRAWsity. What were the 2 sentences that you used to pitch that to Deepwater?
Well, I try to make games where you basically how to play after 1 sentence. So MonsDRAWsity is, you are a police sketch artist, but you're drawing aliens, and you know how to play the game. That's it.
Yeah.
So usually in my pitches, I can do like a 1 sentence thing like that. And with a party game or a social game, usually we can just play around, and you get the core, you get the flow, you get that it's funny on the first time. And ideally the publisher's like, oh, well, let's do another one, or what if this happens, or what if that, you get follow-up questions. But it's definitely, I try to have things that table presence is a big thing for me. As we talked about, the packaging being important, and the marketing, like all of those things are kind of going on in my head, because I know those are going to be going on in the publisher's head. What is the back of the box going to look like? How are we going to, not every game has a commercial. It's not like in the 90s when we had like mousetrap commercials. Some companies get commercials for games, but not a lot of hobby places. But yeah, so is your game simple enough that you can explain it in one sentence? Is when you lay it out on the table, can you take a picture of it and people understand how it plays? Those are the things that I'm looking for, or why it's special, because there are games where, it's a deck builder or, worker placement, and it looks pretty much exactly the same as every other deck builder or every other worker placement. But what is the aspect that is interesting, that even if you have to put it in words on the back of the box, somebody who likes deck builders is like, oh, we do it in reverse, or, oh, the theme is really neat, or something like that. So what's different about it, and what can you put on the back of the box to explain it very quickly?
So Tanya, you've worked for a bunch of different game companies, Marbles, Think Fun, Hasbro. What do you think the hook should be? Is it theme? Is it mechanism? Is it a neat component? What is a theme? What is a hook to you?
A hook can actually be any of those things. And I would say I would 100% agree with John. Like, if we're going to bring something to market, and if I'm looking at, let's say, 2,000 concepts a year, and we're bringing a handful to market, even a company of our size, like, how do you get to be part of that handful? And there's so many games every year being published. How does one one game set it apart from something else? We're all looking for like that innovation or that hook. When you're in mass market, sometimes that hook can be a theme, because you have seconds to get people's attentions when they're in a Walmart or a mass market retailer. So how do you draw their attention? Obviously, the package is super important, but what's in that and what the theme is and what the game is around, sometimes you can attract people's attention by the theme that it is, because it's really relevant. It's really on trend. Or you can grab their attention by a mechanism that is in the game. And that often will come out in a TV commercial kind of thing. And then also it can get down to mechanics as well. So we are very toyetic, especially in our like preschool and our lower kids range. They tend to be more toy, like a popping, or we don't want to necessarily popping, because we see lots of popping, but some sort of new and different mechanism is what we like to see. But then we've recently taken over Avalon Hill, right? So that's a brand we have taken in-house that we're looking to develop as well. So I would say that you can never tell, because I love when Matt and other people like kind of throw some like, okay, sometimes those are the ones that end up being interest, because you don't really know. Now, it has to have some sort of mass market appeal, but you don't really know what we're up to. And I would say the most important thing is to keep regular, like a relationship with the companies and because every time you pitch to me, and if I'm rejecting, I'm telling you why. And then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. They're into this now. Like, we're really right now into our legacy brands or our classics portfolio. Through the pandemic, thankfully the whole industry lifted, but certainly the Hasbro Jengas and Monopolies are like comfort food to people, mass, not necessarily hobby market, and then so people were gravitating towards those with their families as they were all shut in together. So we're now really focusing on those, but sometimes we're only looking for new things. You never know, and a company our size is always changing. So that relationship you have with the John, with the Matt, whoever's the inside person on the company, is really important.
Very cool.
Really, really quick. This is actually this is my biggest point, and I think it flows really nicely from this. And that is that my goal, and this I think should be everyone's goal when you go into a pitch, is to get invited back to pitch again.
Yeah.
Because there are a million different reasons why your game might not fit with that publisher at that time. Has nothing to do with if your game is good. It has nothing to do with you needing to sell your game harder and push it and do this and that. my goal with every meeting is to come in and have those people say, that's awesome. Next time there's a show, next time we're doing something, whatever, next time you have something, send me an email, set a meeting. You know, like the goal is to come in, create a relationship and build a situation, because like Tanya said, there are, you know, only so many slots and there's so many incredible things out there. And the key is over time building that relationship so that you get to be someone that people are happy to have a meeting with and happy to hear what you're up to, because you know, you're a pleasant thing on the calendar when they see it. Oh, at the very least, I know we're going to have an enjoyable few minutes here, you know, like that is huge. And I know Eric and Sen, both of you are, you know, super good at that. Having watched you both work, everybody loves you guys.
There you go. Steve Vesey on Twitter asks, what are some tips for better extrapolating a quote unquote good fit when looking at a publisher's catalog prior to a potential pitch? So, Eric, what do you do when you are, you know, maybe approaching, say, AEG and you've never, you know, pitched to John or Ryan before, and you're like, oh, these guys, they did Tiny Towns and they did all these other games. And what do you do? How do you sort through that and say, which of my games fit?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a kind of a double-edged sword, because there definitely is research you should be doing going into the back catalog, and seeing, maybe not even mechanisms that they've done, but what is the vibe, like the level of crunchiness that they're looking for. A lot of companies now are starting to do even more like press releases, like, hey, we're starting to do a kids line, or we're starting, you know, this new imprint. So you can do some digging into that. Some companies, even if you follow their Twitter, they'll say like, hey, we're looking for pitches, here's what we're looking for. So it's, even since I started, there's a lot more information about what companies are looking for. They're a lot more open about that kind of stuff. But as Tanya was saying earlier, you could do all that research and say like, oh, I know they're not looking for party games, I know they're not looking for whatever, but then they might actually be, you know. So it always helps to, even though you've done the research for what you think would be the best fit, I always like to kind of start the meeting by saying, what are you looking for? What aren't you looking for? That way, if they throw you a curveball and they're like, you know, actually, we're starting a puzzle line or something like that. So do you have anything in the puzzle space? You can kind of, you know, have that weird thing in your back pocket that you didn't think was going to be a fit. So yeah, you kind of have to be prepared for both. And, you know, this goes into a larger question of being prepared for a pitch. If you see me in a convention, I'm always carrying this giant backpack that has like all of, Matt's laughing because he always makes fun of me about it, but this giant backpack full of prototypes and sell sheets and business cards and all of the stuff. And
I carry those to parties. I'm the worst. Like I bring stuff, people are like, oh, we're going out drinking. And I'm like, yeah, but somebody might want to see this.
Let me grab my portfolio.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I do take them out to the parties and the dinners and that kind of stuff. And games have been signed because I had something out at a dinner. But it's more so that, you know, if John throws me a curveball in a pitch and is like, oh, do you actually have anything about cats or whatever? I can be like, actually, I do, and I can pull it out. So you do your research, but also be prepared for curveballs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Matt's point about carrying your stuff with you is really important. At SDCC, we had a literal elevator pitch, like in the elevator going up the floors to the backside of the convention center, where it was actually John Bell from Buffalo Games. Yeah, that's where we met them. And he's like, yeah, you know, here for Comic-Con and looking for stuff and blah blah blah. And I'm, you know, what do you do? Oh, I'm in games. Oh, how about looking at our stuff right now? It's like, yeah, let's do that. So it was just hilarious that like pitches actually do happen in elevators. John,
it's kind of ridiculous and feels awful, but like really the always be closing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, are you at a convention to have fun, or are you at a convention to sign a game? Right. And like, I think that you can have fun, and having fun is an important part of it, and the networking and everything. But ultimately, I'm there to do a job. Right. Mm-hmm. And I want to be prepared to do that job 24/7, right? I don't want to be in a situation where I have that bump in and somebody's like, oh, sure. Like if John had said, hey, let's sit down. I'm about to pop in the room. Why don't we, you told me a great thing. Why don't we sit down and play around? Like, you don't want to be like, oh, well, actually, like you need to be ready to go always.
Always. Yeah. John, how do designers, give you a good sense of, the target market that their game is for? Is it just player count? Is it just, time and the weight of the game? What other things can designers do to translate target market to you?
Sorry, my wife is off camera mocking me right now. The question is, how do designers get across to us what makes their game unique? Is that
for a specific target market, in terms of how can they tell you this game is for a specific target market?
Yeah, I don't know if we specifically look for that in particular when we're looking at pitches. We get a feel for the game during the pitch session. And we've been doing this long enough now that we have enough people at the company who are like, oh, that's a adult game masquerading as a kid's game, or that's a game that's targeted at people that like party games, even though the guy thinks it's a Euro. So we're pretty good at identifying where we think a game is going to belong in a catalog. I made some notes while everybody else was talking.
Go ahead.
I think that vibe is a great word, by the way, Eric.
It is.
Just like going to our website and trying to figure out what games we want to fill in there. That's a fool's errand, I think. But taking a look at the kind of games that we like to publish, the games that we've had success with. One of the big things that we look for after you've gotten through the first few gates, and I've got notes on gates, right? So the first gate is, there's lots of talk about like what you do when you start pitching a publisher. The problem for most designers is getting in the door to actually pitch your game. I've done a few of these now, and I can tell you that most game company, send us your idea to this website folders are never looked at. Like, never looked at. It is a full-time job to look at unsolicited pitches if you open up that gate. So we give pitches to people who are often not pitching us the first time that they come to see us, right? They're at a convention, they're a new game designer, they come by the booth to introduce themselves, to find out who they should be talking to in the future. And oftentimes we will say, you know what, you seem like a nice guy. We've got a slot open on Friday at 2 o'clock if you'd like to come back by and pitch us your game. We seldom give spots to people who walk up and say, I've got a game to pitch you. When can I show you my game? We usually say, well, we're pretty full. We have an off-site system that you go through to get meetings with us at these shows. Like Matt said, once we know people, we're very open with our pitches because we want to be in business with our friends and people that we like. I mean, because we only have so many slots, and we would prefer for one of those slots to be somebody that we like and know. The next gate is your idea, right? If they say, send me a sell sheet, send me a 3-minute video, whatever, like getting past that gate, your pitch has to hit some number of things that are going to make somebody go, oh yeah, I'd like to try that game, or make them ask you questions about it. Then the play session. So I think that the lockdown has changed the way companies will look at games forever. I just had a very serious conversation with our team, Ryan, who loves taking pitches at shows. It's like, oh, Gen Con's coming back online. I can't wait to get back in the room and start taking pitches. And I'm like, that's the way we used to do pitches. Like we want to meet with designers we want to work with, But we now have a much better way of taking pitches. We take pitches like this via Zoom with cameras, and we can give actual time to designers to explain their entire idea and walk us through how a game works. At a convention, you basically get a 15 or 30-minute spot to elevator pitch your idea, and how do I put this? So, and you're not just pitching to us, you're pitching to other companies. The number of times that we have seen a game that we liked, decided that we were going to talk to the designer after the show, and found out that they signed it to the next meeting that they had at that show, is a long list of games that we could have signed. And we don't like snap signing games anymore. We like to play them. We like to see them. And, you know, we'd like to play a game 10 times before we actually commit to publishing that game, because we have snap purchased a number of games and then been on the crappy end of the stick where we're having to call the designer back and say, you know, this didn't find a home inside of AEG. We haven't quite figured out how to do this. So our new way of playing games and realizing that they're actually fun, that they don't just sound like fun, is one of the reasons why I think we've had a much better batting average this last 3 or 4 years than we did in the years leading up to that with our board game purchases.
Very interesting. Very interesting to hear. Tanya, I know that with Hasbro, videos are a big thing. How long should they be? Is it better to have just a video than a sell sheet? Is it better to have both? What do you think?
So the most important thing is definitely the video. So if you're going to only have one thing, have a video. The length of the video will depend on the complexity of the game, but in general, the rule is 2 minutes or less. Obviously, if it's a more in-depth game and it goes over, never should it be 10 minutes. Nobody's going to take that amount of time, because I've actually been sent a 30-minute video before, and I'm like, oh, that's so not going to happen. I can't pitch in with a 30-minute video. So yeah, so 2 minutes or less. And basically, I want to walk away from that video knowing how the game is played. I don't need to know into the weeds of all the different ins and outs of it, but I need to know how the game is played. And like basically get a sense of what a turn looks like and what the objective of the game is, all of those things. And then also the best features of the game. Like what is that hook John was speaking about earlier? What is the really amazing different thing about this game than all the other ones that I've seen? So, and then you can absolutely have a sell sheet if the game is at all complex outside of like our preschool games. We typically will ask for a rule book and or a rule sheet and any other, like usually I like a beauty shot of the product because I'm pitching it in. So I want to like, an image is a great reminder to people, and but I can clip those from videos, so that's not imperative, but the video is definitely king for us.
Cool.
Can I talk about videos real quick, Sen?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, John.
We see a lot of videos, and I think that a lot of people think that what game companies are looking for in a video is I'm standing here with my game on the table and talking to you about how my game works. Those are not always the most effective videos, right? Like some people are just not good on camera. Some people, some of the best videos that we've seen are slide presentations put to music, right? That have all the data and it comes across in sort of a set and pitched out way. And when you're done watching that video, you're like, oh, I understand how this game works. And that was really clever. We've gotten some great videos that cut in movie clips and other things to sort of give you the feel that the designer is going for in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten some great pitches where the designer just sits there and talks to you about his game and shows you the components and stuff. But there is no rule for how you should do a video. Just the length of video, as Tanya said, really matters. Like if it gets over 2 or 3 minutes for me, what we'll do is I'll watch the first 2 or 3 minutes of the video. And if it hasn't captured me, I'll just be like, okay, I'm just going to tell them my video was too long and this is not something that we're interested in.
Fair enough.
So I actually have a hit list of pitch materials. I don't always have this, as everyone who has taken pitches for me can attest. But what I've worked out as the current is actually 3 videos, ideally. So you have that sizzle reel, that real quick, 30 seconds, a minute, like boom, boom, boom. This is what it is, exciting. And that's going to be something that's sort of like edited and put together. I think it's important to also have a rules explanation video. This is not what you lead with, but you have it available. Here is me teaching you how to play the game. You want to learn a little bit more. And then I also like to shoot a play example video. And this could be super long. This could be 30 minutes, because again, you want to provide all of these tools for people to understand as much as they can, and be able to take out the bits that they need, again, to pitch internally. I've started working into more PowerPoints and sort of animatics as part of that. Where you're using this and arrows appear and you're doing this kind of thing. You run through basically like a PowerPoint presentation. I also, for Sen, it's not called a sell sheet, but I have a pitch stats sheet that has sort of like that basic information written down in that format. I also try to have a print and play available, and that obviously depends on the type of game and the type of situation that it is. It may be something where like you can't really print and play, and I may have to mail you a prototype because it's got a bunch of miniatures or whatever other random stuff. And if that is also possible to be put onto a digital tabletop like Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. I've actually been pushing into Tabletopia a lot more because I'm the one that pays for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then anybody can come look at it, as opposed to Tabletop Simulator, which is certainly becoming more of an industry standard. It is certainly a more full service platform, but you have to spend $20 to buy it. Like, and if I'm trying to pitch somebody and they're like, well, I don't have Tabletop Simulator, like, can I just go to a website and do it?
We're using almost the Tabletop Simulator almost exclusively.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's our.
It's much better. It's much better. And then the last thing is I try to have a working rules document. And that I say working rules document because this is not expected to be, here's the rule book done, but this is rules that you can read and play the thing. And obviously this is for like a finished pitch. Sometimes we pitch concepts to different companies that are interested in some of those earlier stage things. But I think at the very least, if you think about this hit list, that's going to put you on the road to having the information that you need to pitch, right? If you're thinking about filling in these slots, that's going to give you everything you need. It's going to allow you to answer any question that a publisher might have. You're going to be able to say, oh yeah, I have that. We actually have a web portal where we give you a little password and you log into a website and it has all this stuff too. So if you ask for follow-up, we're like, oh, here's the thing, just pop in, and then you have easy access to all this. You don't have to carry stuff home. You don't have to worry about losing this or that. It's like, boom, it's there.
Mm-hmm. That's really great because it's very different than dropping everything in like an email with like 17 attachments. Nobody wants that, by the way. Also, if you send it unsolicited, most publishers will not even open it. It's garbaged immediately because that is a legal risk for them. So just give the publishers what they ask for, but have it ready, I think is what Matt's saying. If they ask for a long play video, it's like, yeah, I got that already. They don't have to wait a week for you to shoot it and write it. Now, Matt was tenderly poking me with the sell sheet jibe because Matt does not believe in the power of sell sheets.
That's not exactly true.
That's not true. And I also don't believe that they are the be all and end all. But what I believe about sell sheets is that they are a good and easy, low bar practice way for somebody to learn how to articulate what their game's hook is. And do they get it all the time? No. As John already said.
No way. Can I actively disagree with that?
You can actively disagree with me. Go right ahead.
Well, I would say that these people get entire degrees in graphic design. People get entire degrees in marketing, in copywriting, in all of the skills that go into making like what would be a great sell sheet, right? But sell sheets are typically seen when it's publishers soliciting retailers, and they are made by a marketing department and marketing experts. And so a great sell sheet is cool, but just because you're great at marketing, graphic design doesn't necessarily mean you're good at game design. And just because you're crappy at graphic design and illustration and creating assets doesn't mean that you're not an incredible systems designer. And John's going to tell me how wrong I am.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you how wrong I am. I just felt like this moved into like an episode of Crossfire, and now I feel like to throw out my rebuttal for that.
Go ahead.
I think that the world is an awesome place now for game designers, because if they can't get pitches to game companies, they now have a way to go out and actually sell their own games. They can go to Kickstarter or other crowdfunding platforms and just basically say, I wasn't able to get the pitches that I wanted, or I've got this sort of dream, and I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna figure out how to do this on my own. I think that being a professional game designer now means that you have to have you need to be a bard. You need to have a wide variety of skills. You don't need to be good at graphic design and layout, but it helps to be able to put together a quality spreadsheet. You don't have to be a great person at making videos, but it helps to know, to copy videos that are out there that have been for successful games, or if you're pitching a party game, to know that having pictures of people playing your party game and having fun as part of that video is a very powerful tool to get somebody to say, look at those people having fun. Maybe I want to give that game, a try. And then the lesson we've learned multiple times from John Clare, one of our designers that we've published a lot of games for, prototyping matters. Like, you have to build a good prototype experience for your game. Like, the number of games that we bought that had a prototype is one. We bought Smash Up after Paul got on a plane and came to Gamma and showed me this game. He said, you take these cards and you smash them together, and it's a game. And I said, oh yeah, I get it. It's sort of instant build deck, Paul. And I'm like, well, I like that idea. We're interested. He's like, oh, no, I want to pitch this to other people. He came back to me the next morning. I was sitting at the big bar in Tuat Valleys, and he was like, nobody gets this pitch. And I'm like, yeah, because your prototype's a piece of crap. Nobody's going to take you seriously when you get these handwritten things off of the plane and say it's instant build deck. I get it because I make collectible trading card games, and so
it's also a little different when you're industry legend Paul Peterson. I think you get away with a little bit a little dumpier situation too.
People to pay attention to his matchup pitch. Thank God. I mean, I am happy to be on the good side of the receiving end of that story.
Right.
I will say, kind of in between all of these feelings about sell sheets, as someone who still makes them, and spent a little bit of lunchtime making some today, actually. I think the process of doing it, to Sen's point, is very useful, whether it turns out to be beautifully graphic designed or, looks exactly like the back of a box or whatever. It's kind of the same thing as if you sat down and wrote your resume, even if you already have a job. That process is really powerful to realize all the things you do in a day. What are all the skills you have? What are the gaps in your resume? And being able to explain your whole game in 2 paragraphs. What do I need to have pictures of so that you can really understand the game? I mean, when I'm making a sell sheet and I know I can only put 2 pictures on it or 3 pictures on it, those end up being the things that I set up on the table for the publisher to see. I need to, make sure they see this component that's really fun. I need to make sure that, I use this as an example for how the cards fit together. So the process of making it, I think, is really important. And you get further down into the rabbit hole of things that aren't as useful. I also make, as part of the hobby of board game design, pretty boxes for my prototypes. I just like the process of making a little box and and figuring out what the cover might look like. And it's not, obviously that's going to get changed a million times before the game comes out. They're not going to use my MS Paint cover, but the process of thinking through what the product might look like is
having
really
a vision
useful
is
for me.
important.
Yeah, I'm a very visual person, so it's useful for me.
I could see the sell sheet was important, like from this side of the table.
Mhm.
It was important when I worked for smaller companies because I needed some way to track the things that I liked. And so if I was seeing in a day, like let's say 50 ideas, but there was like, but then I've got 5 days in a row. If I'm collecting sell sheets on the spot, then I could file them in a specific place to say, don't forget about this. But working for Hasbro, I never really request them anymore because we have a portal that tracks all of that for me, thankfully. So I don't really use a sell sheet, but I can totally see what you're saying, Eric, about, the fact the process of creating it is really important. I did want to say a couple of things about what not to do in a
Sure.
video, I find. So one is don't use music that's too loud. Some people don't want music at all. I don't mind music, and because I'm seeing so many videos, like you can actually, music can lend a great energy to a video, as long as it's not detracting me away from your words or something else that I'm trying to understand. Definitely do not spend a lot of money on your videos. Like I have people like, oh my God, I'm going to pitch Hasbro. So do I need to go get this produced? And I'm like, you absolutely do not. Like if you want to point and shoot and show me, as long as your passion, your energy, and your idea is getting across through the camera, that's all I really care about. I definitely don't want people spending a lot of money on it. It's really hard sometimes when I'm trying to intently watch your video and you are flashing words across your screen, and I've got to read those words, and I can't do two. My eyes, they don't work well together, but they definitely can't take in two things from at the same time. So I prefer people to either do a voiceover, so all I'm doing is listening and watching, versus listening and reading, but then missing that really awesome payoff or action because I was too busy reading the words. So be careful you don't do that. Make sure that the people in your video, if you have people, we're not requiring anybody in the pandemic to actually gather, but if you have playtesting footage and things like that in the video, make sure that the people playing the game are the appropriate age for the game that it is intended for. It's really bad when there are a bunch of 40-year-olds sitting around playing a 6-year-old's game. It just doesn't convey, especially since I'm using that to pitch internally, kind of the right, and not to say you have to go get a bunch of 6-year-olds if you don't have access to them, because you don't need to show that. But if you are going to do it, make sure that it's age appropriate. And then just finally, energy and passion. I watch so many videos. It's really fun when I get a fun one, and it's entertaining for those 2 minutes. So I would say definitely put a lot of energy into it.
Excellent points. Excellent points, Tanya. Matt, how long do you need to wait, or should you wait before you consider a non-response a sign of like they're just not interested?
I don't really pitch that way, so I'm not entirely sure how to answer that. To me, it's a conversation. Well, to me, it's a conversation, right?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna continually be in conversation with publishers that are, obviously, if I go to something and I pitch, it's like a big convention, I pitch 30, 40 publishers over, more over a few days, and like whatever, I don't chase after stuff if it's that stage. But if somebody wants to take a prototype, if somebody is interested in a thing enough that we're going to have a conversation, that's going to be something where I'm just kind of talking to them and checking in to see what's going on. Do you need something from me? How are we doing? Not in a pushy way, not in a you need to make a decision right now. But for me, I tend to know where we stand most of the time. Publishers are perfectly upfront about like, hey, you know what? We're slammed right now. We're not going to have an answer for 4 months, right? Like, I'm excited about this. Really doesn't matter how excited I am about it. We have a backlog right now, or we just
Right.
have, a lot of the bigger publishers. I get stuff where I get a wish list for 2022, right? And they're like, if I show up with something, they're like, yeah, well, we're working through the stuff that we planned out for the next year and this and that, and like, it's going to be a while before we start looking at new products for that next wave. And then other people are, I took a prototype, I took it, I'm excited, I'm hyped up. I might chase after them a week later, like depending on their energy level, the way that they are telling me that they're going to interact with it. So I think the best advice there is to follow their lead, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to run into this confusion if you're sending like unsolicited stuff, But if it's solicited, if people want the thing, nobody's going to be bummed that you're like, hey, so like this thing that you were very excited about, like, how are we doing? You know, and I always bring it as a, how can I help you? Right. Not a, what are you doing? Not, you know, like, oh, you need to get back to me. Just, hey, like, how's it going? You know, if you had a chance to check it out yet, do you need anything more from me? Is there anything else I can do to help, you know, support you in this situation? I do, like, in typical days, like, you know, 20 plus shows a year. So a lot of times I don't have that big a gap, you know, it's, oh, great, I'll see you in a month and I'm just going to ask, you know?
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point that these are just human communications. Like, it's just natural flow of communication that if, you know, we pitch John something, we're just going to keep on following up, just like we're like on a daily, not on a daily basis, but like a daily communication style, not this like big formal email, Sir John of Zinserville or whatever, you know, it's not like that. It's a little bit less formal than that.
I mean, I think he'd like that.
He might. John, I wanted to ask you a question. Do designers need to consider production cost when designing games?
That is actually a sort of a heated debate inside of AEG right now.
Oh, interesting. Tell us.
I think that the answer to that question is no. So for AEG, at least, it's no, right? Like, you bring us a game and it's fun and we want to play it again and then again and then again, which is the sort of bar for us, right? Like we'll get I'm coming to you from the Alderac Entertainment Group, Larkstone House, right? Like this is the house that we rent to just play games in.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-pandemic, that we were playing 6 days a week, but it was just gameplay. It was nothing else. And what we would do is we would get a number of games to a certain point, and then I would put those games on a table and have people come over to the house who had already played them before. And then I would just take notes as to which games were coming off the stack first to be replayed. Because human nature would be, well, I want us to try this game, well, we'll try it. But once you've tried a game, are you drawn back to pull that game off the stack again to play, to get to teach it to somebody? Like, we never had that interaction until we actually had a place where we were focused on the gameplay part of doing games, not the business part of making games, right? Like, we played games at our office, but there was always people coming in and saying, I need you to edit this, I need you to check on that. And like the Larkstone House rules are no business, right? Like, this is just
I like it.
where you play games.
Interesting.
And so, sorry, I lost track of the question there.
No, it's just, do designers really need to consider production costs?
I don't think that they do need to consider production costs. I mean, if their game has got a ton of components in it, it narrows the number of people who could probably say yes to that game. But I also think that since for mid to large, not super large, not Hasbro and Mattel, but for companies like AEG, Kickstarter is now a possibility for us. And so if your game is a lot of fun and it has a whole bunch of components, there's just a chance that we're going to say, we really like this game, we can't stop playing it. We're going to build a Kickstarter campaign around it and charge enough money so that if people see what we see, that we can make a profit, you'll make a profit, and we'll go from there. So,
right.
So I used to do a seminar. I've done it at PAX Dev and a couple other shows, conferences called Designing with Production in Mind. And so, because a lifetime ago, I was in manufacturing and I did print brokering, helped publishers manufacture games. And so, to my mind, it is important to think about it. It should not drive your design process. You should make an awesome game always first, but you should be aware of what it costs to make games and what it is you're asking a publisher to do. So, I think people have a better sense of how this all works, but at the same time, hey, I want you to make this game and it requires 120 custom dice. Like, that is a thing that you're going to want to think about. And as a designer, I will look at stuff and say, well, here's some ideas on how I can have basically the same gameplay experience and just cut the price in half, right? So having thoughts around what you might be able to do in that space is useful, but again, it should never drive your design process. You should never say, oh, this is impossible, it's too much stuff. Like, make the awesome thing first and foremost, but I think having a grounding in games as products is only going to help.
I don't think designers need to know about production costs, but I think they need to be smart enough to look at what's in a $40 box across 6 or 7 different companies, coming to us with a game that has, 120 specially molded dice is never going to be a $40 game, ever.
Yep.
Right. Game for $40. That's a $60 or $70 game, and you have to be sort of aware of that. When you bring us a game, like, the components in this game are similar to the components that you'd find in Splendor or that you'd find in one of these other games, that is priced in that $30 to $40 to $50 price range. That's better than coming to us with this bombastic prototype and thinking, well, I was really hoping we'd be able to sell that for $55.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you know what, everybody? We have talked for almost an hour, and I just want to give everybody a chance to sign off before we end the conversation. So let's start with Tanya, because you were the first time, so we'll go in the reverse order. Tanya, tell us a little bit about yourself, what Hasbro's doing lately, and where people can find you.
So if you don't already have like a direct line to me, probably the easiest thing is to go onto our portal, which is www.spark.hasbro.com. So it's called Spark, and it's a place where we take like unsolicited submissions, I guess, because we definitely do not take them any other way. So if you don't know us or know me, then that is a way that you can submit ideas automatically to Hasbro. If we meet at a show, or like, for sure, I'm reaching out to Eric at the end of this call. So if I, because I am trying to, as we do more Avalon Hill and others, there is like an opportunity here for doing a broader base than just our preschool games and other things that you know of, like Scattergories and Taboo and things like that. So we are stretching the portfolio. So I would say you need to know we have a non-disclosure agreement. So a company our size, seeing so many products every year, we just have to protect ourselves, because nobody hesitates to sue the big guy if you think we stole your idea, and we're not in the business of doing that. But there is a non-disclosure that we have that you would need to sign before you were to pitch to us. So that's why, like, I meet you, I like you, at a convention in a bar or whatever, but my first kind of thing I need to do is get a non-disclosure. And then the things that we're doing, we really have 4 categories: preschool, kids, family, and more gamer, Avalon Hill. So taking over that portfolio. So just kind of look at those kind of categories and what we're doing. At the moment, I don't have any specific. I used to, I wasn't taking in card games. I wasn't looking at our legacy brands. And now I am. So definitely, if you have a Simon idea or a Twister idea or something like that, I definitely would like to see it. And then as well, just kind of innovation across the line. We do need you to kind of have a sense of, you don't need to know the exact cost of things, because we are very limited in our, a mass market consumer is not going to purchase a $40, $50, $70 game. But we are looking at kind of different avenues, but they're going to have different channels where we're going to sell them. And as John said, Kickstarter is a great thing for inventors. Hasbro, we have our own platform like Kickstarter, which is where we recently launched Hero Quest. And that was because we couldn't put a $200 game on the shelf and be successful. We weren't sure what the appetite would be, but we learned there are a lot of super fans out there for Hero Quest. Made it viable. So yeah. So there you go.
You guys knew that before you put it up.
Hey, might have.
We hoped.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Eric, yeah. I think the Rubber Band Rooster game.
Yeah, it's already. I have a video. I have a sell sheet.
Eric, where can people find you, and what are you up to lately?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be pitching to Tanya here soon.
I hope so.
Other than that, you can find me at Slauson Designs on Twitter. Mostly I hang out around there. You know, these sorts of things, podcasts, just do a Google. I'm around the internet. Yeah, but thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Mr. Elm City Games himself. How do people find you,
I
Matt?
guess that's where you can find me. You can knock on the
Right.
door and you know,
Buy a game.
Get in here. Yeah, I mean, my office is in the same complex, as it were, and so you know that's where I am. That's where you literally find me. I don't really do social media.
Mhm.
You can go to foreverstokedcreative.com if you want to get in touch. I will say that if you're interested in some of the stuff we're working on or want to see some of the projects, you can go to play.foreverstokedcreative.com, and that is our playtesting program where you can sign up and, you know, check out a bunch of stuff that I can't talk about because of all these NDAs, because I'm now a corporate pig. So
Far from it.
Oh, Matt. Awesome. And John, where do people find you and AEG?
So if you're a designer, we've got a Facebook group called the Alderac Design Center. It is meant to be a community where designers help each other, but it's also sort of the portal where I go and let people know when we're looking at pitches, what type of games we're looking at. I talk about why we selected certain games to become games. Credit to you, we just ran a pitch project on our design forum for designers, and we got 220 pitches from unique designers, because we told them one design each only, please. And I'm in the process of looking at those videos and going through those things and sending out letters to all the people who did that. So we're very actively involved in finding our next great game.
Excellent.
And we look at a lot of games. We play a lot of games here at the Larkstone House. So we look at a lot, we play a few, and we buy even fewer. So that's our path to finding great games. But we want to see your game for sure.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for coming and spending the hour with me. I'm Sen-Foong Lim. You can find me at Sen-Foong Lim on Twitter, and we will see everybody soon. See you later.